what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the panel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Chocolate Sayin, The Plain Truth, Mark Doxey, and Arwin. Good to have you all, gentlemen.
Hello. What?
Good afternoon.
Hello, folks.
Oh, yo.
Somebody's
Hello.
not in his truck.
Hopefully you're a little bit loud.
I walked
Sort that
down
out
to the
first.
park.
How's it going, gentlemen?
What's that?
Keep the conversation going. I was just hoping to level you all up, and you've all gone completely silent.
Well, I can continue the conversation I was having with Mark. So I was in the airport, and this man had a 2-year-old screaming, throwing herself down on the ground, kicking and screaming. And it was, I was watching other people, and they're looking over and whatnot. And after a couple of minutes, I was just like, I can't handle this. So I walked over to him, and I said, "Have you ever looked into the physiology of what happens when we allow our children to throw fits like this?" And he's like, "No." I said, "Well, right now her body is building up, chemicals that are reacting with her emotional state, so that if you allow her to continue throwing fits like this, she's going to maintain and need to maintain throwing fits in order to have this kind of chemical reaction with her emotions." And he just looked at me. That was about as close as I could get to trying to say, "Please control your child."
It's not that simple.
Well, yeah, but see, what the funny thing is that I have had 5 kids, and I've never had a child throw a fit like that.
Yeah.
And whenever my kids are with me when they were younger, and we would have a display like that in the department store or whatever, I would say, "See, children, whenever you don't get your way, that's what I want you to do." And they're like, "Dad, you do not."
I've raised 5 kids as well. My youngest daughter has, well, she's been tested for autism, and we found that she loves wide open spaces. You know the expression, the kids climbing up the walls.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
somebody's advice is, well, just take the walls away.
Right.
And it works. We found that maybe it's claustrophobia, I don't know, but it put her into a wide open space, and she's so happy.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Or if she starts to have a tantrum in the house, I just lift her into the garden, and it changes her viewpoint. She calms down very quickly.
Yeah.
What were you genuinely saying that it can get sort of an adrenaline kick from having a tantrum?
Yeah, I was talking with my sister while I was on vacation, and she brought it up. We were talking about our kids, and she brought up her own research and looking into that, and that was something that she came across. So I was just parroting what she had told me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You're right. Each case is specific, and it's not a cookie cutter case. But this child was clearly just throwing a fit. She had no tears.
Yeah.
She wasn't in pain. She was just going ballistic.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between the lack of discipline and
Right.
a genuine problem that needs to be handled.
Yeah.
We found distraction is the way to go with our little girl.
Yeah. I think too that some people are intimidated because they don't want to discipline in public, and so they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have done with my kids is that if they were ever at the point of throwing a fit or being in disagreement or something like that, I would come down to their level and I would hold their hand in my hand, and I would take their pinky nail and I would slightly press it just enough to give them a pressure point of pain, which would be in a similar vein to giving them a swat on the hiney, but it's not as physically demonstrable and no one would know what I was doing. But the child, you could see his mouth would open up as to say, ow. And I would just get it to that point to get his attention and say, settle down, stop throwing a fit. We're going to get there as soon as possible, or this, that, or the other. And that seemed to work pretty good.
Yeah.
I watched a woman today. I was at a play group, and I will get to housekeeping eventually. For those who are watching, thinking this isn't flat Earth, don't care. And there was this one kid had made like a tunnel at the end of the slide, and then put a tent at the end of it. So you slide down the slide, go through the tunnel, and then into the tent. And her kid just basically did like a dive bomb onto the tent. Now there could have been a load of kids in there, and the mother saw it and immediately went over to the kid and demanded that the kid look at her. That was the first thing that she did. She said it a couple of times till he did. Got more and more stern as she did. Then she got down on her knees, right? So he's looking directly at her. And then with her 3 inches from his nose, she told him in no uncertain terms that what he was doing was wrong. And the kid knew about it. Now, there was loads of parents around. And I was like, I'll have that. I like that a lot.
Was it a stranger to the child or was it the parent?
Oh, no, it's
to
definitely the
child?
mother. But I'm just saying the way she went about it was to first demand that the kid look at her in the eye. So she knows the kid knows she means business. Then she's walking up to him, getting very close. Then she's 3 inches away from his nose while she's explaining what's wrong and why it's wrong.
Yep, that works. It's forcing contact.
I'll let them know you mean business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
anyway,
it also disables them from going into a fit.
I don't know about that. Anyway, let's move on to housekeeping. Any signs of curvature, gentlemen? Especially you, Mark.
No signs of curvature, but we are having pretty cloudy, foggy days, so maybe I've forgotten how to look for it.
Or maybe that cloud and fog is the curvature that they allege.
Yeah.
What about axial rotation, specifically of the Earth, although Ranty's not here for some reason?
Let me go back to curvature because I've been hesitant to say anything because I'm not sure I can do it enough justice. But my friend has taken issue with my moon footage that I've given, and he thinks that it's demonstrable of curvature. So his argument is that on the East Coast, when I look at the moon and I see the termination line at a certain angle, and he's on the West Coast and he sees the termination line at a different angle, that's proof of curvature. So that would be from his side, right? So he's saying, you are 3,000 miles away and you're moving in a direction up away from the moon. So you are basically, what David Weiss says, you're spinning backwards. So you're looking at the moon from an angle, and so that's why.
Isn't that a pharmacological fallacy? Isn't that more like a hint of the curvature of the moon? Because, even that could be drawn in doubt, of course.
What are you going to say, Mark?
About the locality of the two. It's an assumption that one's 250,000 miles away and one's 93 million miles away. Would you get the same effect, an even clearer effect, if they were more local? I don't think you can't conclude anything from that. It's just open to discussion, interpretation.
Is that the end of that?
I said
Okay.
Right, moving on. Any signs of axial rotation, specifically of the Earth-based variety?
No, zero.
Nope.
Pressurized system next to a vacuum?
Definitely not.
I have a vacuum sealed coffee mug right now.
Earth-based, specifically Earth-based.
In a container. I'm just saying it has to have a container, otherwise it wouldn't be a vacuum.
that's the whole point of the asking.
Okay. Moving on. What about any signs of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nope.
No.
I heard there's some iron in the ground there.
That's nice.
Isn't it?
There's some iron in the ground. Okie dokie. Any signs of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, though, Arwin?
Well, apparently that means that is there, but yeah, I don't get it.
What are you talking about? There's pictures all over the internet of this. What do you guys mean?
Oh, the cartoons, you mean? Yeah, I don't really accept those.
Exactly.
I got them in encyclopedia.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one when I was a kid in my textbook, so it's got to be there. Right?
Go on, Nathan.
Nah,
ask
not
ask the
really.
final one.
Well, there's a couple more, isn't there? There's gravity and there's the R itself. But which one do you want first? Should we go with the presupposition of R? Any
Hey,
signs
you
of that?
forgot Bill Miller.
Oh yes, Bill Miller.
Oh, we'll get to Bill Miller. Bill Miller
there's
has to be
3 more
slipped
yet.
in. Well, that's Bill Miller in. So, any signs of Bill Miller?
No, still don't know who that is.
Has anybody done a search on Facebook for a Bill Miller? I bet there's quite a few.
Fair
I
enough.
have no idea
What about
who
gravity?
that is.
Gravity? Any signs of that?
No gravitational pull. Bending of space-time. Well, not proof of it anyway.
Well, I'm pretty much certain that is it for housekeeping. Swifter than normal, not the longest, not the shortest. Excellent stuff.
You forgot R.
And no, I did ask about the presupposition of R, and then someone said, "What about Ben Miller?" Not Ben Miller,
Oh.
Bill Miller.
Okay.
William.
We didn't
Good old
answer it,
William.
so yeah, no R.
No R.
No R.
It's because you missed your opportunity to go R, right, Arwin?
All right.
There's endless ones. Okay, brothers, in R we trust.
Nah, I don't.
Nah.
Gravitas Dominus, Spiritus Radius Sanctus. Amen. Go in
You
peace.
get it wrong every time.
In R you trust.
There's no spiritus.
There is. The Spiritus of Arus.
No. No. It's
spirit of
Radius
R.
Sanctus Gravitas Dominus.
It just
Because
sounds
then it
more
has a meaning.
genuine. It sounds more genuine when you throw Spiritus in there, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta
It
have
sounds
it.
more Catholic. That's what it sounds more like.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what it's taking off, though, isn't it?
Oh.
No, but there is no spiritus in the whole heliocentric globe cosmology. That's the whole point of it. It's materialistic. So to throw a spiritus in there is just it doesn't conform.
Well, that pisses all over my bonfire. Thank you very
I
much.
like it.
It just sounds good, and Arwin's absolutely right, demolishing why I put it in there, just to sound cool.
Hey, I invented it.
Fair enough. Total plagiarism on my part.
That's
I've
true.
completely stolen it, I know. And every time I say it, you'll say, "There's no spiritus!"
Right. And the only spiritus is the bottle of scotch you can add.
But would it Helios be the Spiritus? Since they all praise Helios.
But they don't
No, but
realise
it's
that.
not a spirit, according to them. That's what they lend it from originally. But yeah, they don't believe that. It's just, how do you say, it's occult displacement. They lend from the old pantheon, and then they made them into physical bodies in the heavens. They don't believe they're actually spirits.
Yeah, but it does have something to do with like all the gods, right? Because all the planets, they're all named after.
No, but they stole it from that. They don't, in the official narrative, in the official lore of it, that's just what they lent or stole the names from. Has nothing to do with the actual origin of it.
Okay.
So anyway. So yesterday was messy.
Messy?
Yeah, messy as hell, the debates. Eventually
Really?
just left because it's like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna not gonna get involved in all that.
I honestly can't remember. What was all that again?
All the everyone with their weird stances on gravity, downward acceleration, force potential, blah blah blah.
There's you, downward
I don't think
acceleration
anyone
force of the
actually
Flat Earth
watched my
Society, man.
hangout. So
You're currently being tarred with Flat Earth Society shill, you know that, right?
screw them. I've never. I just heard about them, and I don't give a shit. I don't make the similar claims that they do. They claim there's literal movement going on, and that's why they can supposedly call it a force. I don't make that claim. It's an effect. It's an effect that is similar to as if the Earth were accelerating upwards. I don't claim that it is, and they do. That's the difference.
Nathan, you have a telescope.
But can I ask, Armin, why even describe it that way? If we know that that's not what's happening, why describe it as the
Because
Earth
that
is
is what the
accelerating
effect
up?
is. That is what the
Well,
effect expresses itself as. And I
right,
explained this on my
right, but it's
Hangout
the
for over an hour yesterday, if you watched it.
I didn't catch it. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, then you don't understand. But yeah, I expressed this specifically. It's the upward acceleration force uh, in
Well,
response to
but
the effects
okay,
that are present. There is a disequilibrium in forces in the stationary setting in this world, which makes the force yeah stronger
so
downwards than upwards, and that is very similar to as if something, a car and anything in it, was accelerating forward. Then there would be the same kind of disequilibrium backwards, and thus it is very similar to acceleration. And well, the way it is distributed, the way density and buoyancy expresses itself, is similar to as if the entire Earth were accelerating upwards.
right, but
Yeah,
and
exactly like that.
I'm just asking because I've been listening to this conversation back and forth for as long as it's been going on, and I don't know, like why I don't understand why you would I I guess what I'm saying is I get that it's an effect of, let's say, the Earth is moving upwards, but we do notice that things move downwards. That's why for me it was all right
But
with the
that's
downward
density and buoyancy.
acceleration.
That's
I
density and
understood that.
buoyancy. That's all density and buoyancy. Things falling, balloons going upward has nothing to do with this force. The only thing that it relates to is why things that are less dense go up and things that are denser go down. That's the only reason. It has nothing to do with the actual falling mechanics. It's only an expression of the density buoyancy alignment. That is why I conclude there is an upward acceleration effect.
Non sequitur, though. You've just described the effects of buoyancy and density, and then just added in this extra force.
No, I don't.
Yeah, there's no need for anything to accelerate upwards for density and
Yeah,
buoyancy
there
to have
is.
effects. Really? Why?
Yeah. Well, the same effect as I described earlier. And I am not claiming that the Earth is accelerating upward. I'm just saying there is a disequilibrium. And this disequilibrium is exactly like if a body were accelerating in a direction.
Okay,
It is
So
exactly similar. That's all.
can you
That's all
expound
it
on
is.
the disequilibrium? What do you mean?
Well, I used to call it an equilibrium, and this was a technical mistake of me. Basically, it's not an equilibrium because in an equilibrium, things are basically in a stationary setting, like a car moving at a constant speed. The forces are at an equilibrium, and yeah, because it is in a constant motion. It is only in acceleration, when the
Deceleration.
disequilibrium sets in, that the alignment of the density buoyancy direction shifts.
Okay, so but my question was your reference to calling it or referring to a equilibrium, and so that's
Yes.
why you have. Okay, so that's what I'm asking you to um, talk about. I mean, what is it that you're observing that shows a disequilibrium that then leads you to say that there is an upward acceleration?
Well, I'm not claiming there is an upward acceleration. I'm just claiming there is an effect that seems very similar to this.
That
Okay,
would be
that's
also
I'm
similar to
still
the
asking you to
downward
talk about that.
acceleration, right?
No, no, there's nothing. No, things that are denser accelerate downwards because of the disequilibrium in forces that are present in the stationary setting of the Earth.
Right. So I think we would be good with that. But when you talk about something going up, that's where the confusion sets in for me. Is that why talk about that at all?
Well, exactly. That's why, like the downward acceleration idea only refers to denser things in relation to air. Yeah, but it does not explain the upward motion of less dense things. And then you say, oh, what? Yeah, then density and buoyancy. Yeah, but it is all density and buoyancy. All of
Okay,
these effects are density and buoyancy. But
so you're
density and
saying
buoyancy can be shifted in its alignment by changing the disalignment, the disequilibrium by applying, for example, acceleration. And
Okay,
then the
okay,
Kanan.
alignment shifts, and this is just truth. This is how it works. And thus, I conclude from deduction. That's why I do not claim proof. That's why I do not claim force. That, yeah, there is a disequilibrium caused by an apparent upward acceleration of the stationary Earth, which is in fact not motioning or accelerating upwards, but the effect is exactly alike, causing density and buoyancy to, well, basically be aligned upwards and downwards as they do.
so you're saying that the upward acceleration effect and the downward acceleration force are both in play at the same time.
No, there is no downward acceleration. Downward acceleration is a
Mm.
density buoyancy effect. Doesn't have anything to do with forces that are
So
ever
okay,
present.
so
Well, yeah.
the only
Yeah,
thing that we can, in my mind, observe in terms of density and buoyancy going up is uh, something that we create with a balloon
Yeah.
or something man-made,
The
right?
density buoyancy alignment is basically the less dense goes one direction, the denser goes the other direction. That is the density buoyancy alignment.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just going to be honest. On the one hand, I hear you speaking the way that we would be totally comfortable, and then on the other hand, when you describe it, I think it's nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, give
To
it some time.
I'm trying.
Oh, you can't try giving it some time. You just give it some time. And in the meantime,
So,
yeah, you might not get it. It's gonna take
so
time.
when you say alignment, is what you're saying like the basic, I guess, status of where, like, what the Earth is doing right now, right?
No, the alignment of the density buoyancy in the stationary
Well,
setting of
because
the Earth is the reason why up and down. That
because
is
you,
it.
you you call it, you say it's the alignment of, what is it, the stationary
Density and
Earth?
buoyancy.
No, he says something else. What is it? This,
I
The
think it would be helpful
alignment
for
of the
him to give us.
density buoyancy directions on the Earth in its stationary setting, as it
and
is.
and its stationary setting. That's what I was getting at.
Give us
Okay.
a give us a
So
tangible
is
demonstration or example without describing it, right? So when we ask ballers to give evidence and they describe something, we say no, 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 don't describe it. So give us a tangible example of what you're talking about, please, Arwen.
Serious? Do I have to get it over all over it again? Because I've already explained these examples so many
Well
times.
then, Either that shows that you're not very good at communicating, or I'm not very good at listening. So
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. Well,
I'm
okay. I will explain it again. I I gave the example just like 10 minutes ago. Not even an accelerating body, like a car, whatever. All the
yeah.
matter that is in this car, when accelerating, is gonna have a disequilibrium of forces, causing a displacement of the alignment of the density and buoyancy within that confine. It's
I'm
gonna
looking for
shift.
vertical.
It's going to shift from being vertical to diagonal because there is a new balance within the disequilibrium present.
Shout out to Flat Earth Dude for the super chat. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you're talking about a car that's horizontal, but we're talking about something
Yes,
that's falling and rising. That's what
right.
I'm looking for. A car
Okay,
doesn't fall and rise.
right. So, well, if something falls at terminal velocity, I think it's called, then the disequilibrium will be temporarily negated because of the motion downwards, and things will start to free float, negating the density and buoyancy effect. If something is forced to move upwards, like a rocket launching itself in an accelerating speed upwards, then the density and buoyancy effect is increased in its strength because there's more disequilibrium now, causing the divide of matter in the form of density and buoyancy. And the pressure on somebody in that rocket, it's going to be more than usual, more than just stationary setting. So expressions of an alignment of density and buoyancy. That's what the forces do. That's what the disequilibrium of forces do.
Oh, and have you shifted in your opinion over the last few days? Or was this what you were arguing?
Well, this is what I was arguing, but I was using the wrong terminology because I said equilibrium. That's just wrong. It was actually disequilibrium. And yeah, Adam and Rasta had basically hinted at it yesterday, and I got really confused about it. But in the end, I finally saw through it like, oh, damn, I've been using the wrong terminology. It's not equilibrium, it's disequilibrium in forces.
Right, you're being heckled from the chat by Sleeping Warrior, who says, "What's the cause of that effect? Magic, wizardry?"
Well, maybe Riley being a dick. I don't know. I don't have a cause. That's why I don't claim a force and call it an effect.
Is Anthony
Simply
going to come
there.
in? Anthony, you're going to come in?
No, he's not.
He's not. Oh, that's not
If he's
fair.
if
He
he's
had
going
a
to
go at
pay
me
for
yesterday.
questions,
Come on.
cash for questions, I'm all for. Hey, X Zoe Zero, sorry. How you doing?
Good morning, guys.
Hello, good to have you.
I just joined to ask Arwin a question.
All right.
Um, so in your head, if this such force didn't exist, things will just float. Like if you put like a 80,000 tons truck in the air, that thing will just float, stay there.
Well, I can't prove that now, can I? Because I can't
Exactly.
negate the forces in a stationary setting. That's why I don't call it a force, but an effect that I deduce, just as before. I have no scientific proof. For anyone thinking in their head that I now am supposedly suddenly claiming to have
No.
scientific proof, no, I do not. It's an effect. I deduce it. It's very clear cut. It's the same as before, but my terminology is now more cleaned up. That's all.
For, for me, it's really simple because I keep hearing you saying that why it doesn't move forward, backwards, or sideways.
Yeah.
And for me, the reason that goes down is because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So there's no reason for an item to go sideways if his equilibrium is in the ground. You know, there's no reason to go sideways. It just gotta
That's not the
go.
reason. That's not the reason. The reason why it doesn't go sideways is because from sideways there is an equilibrium. There is no disequilibrium to one direction towards the side, unless you go into an accelerating car. Then suddenly there is a disequilibrium sideways, and things will move sideways within that car as it is accelerating. That is the reason why.
Gonna give a plug to OBL Music. Super chatted for it. Why not? Check out our new track, Criminals. Thanks. Well, thank you very much for the super chat. Just got a question for you also, Arwin. So yesterday we had Travis with his coconut example, right? Once the coconut's on the ground, this
Okay.
effect must still be taking place, right?
Yes, it does. Because it will still exert some level of pressure on the thing that it is resting us on.
Okay. So
It's weight.
when you say effect, that would be an observed phenomena. So when you've got a...
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's a deduction. It's
No.
deductions from things that we do observe.
Okay. An effect in science would be a phenomena. And you're trying to establish the cause of that effect. So I'm asking,
am
when you've got a
not.
coconut on the ground, what effect are you observing? What's the phenomena?
That it exerts pressure on what it is resting on, like a scale, for example.
Yeah, well, like with Rumpus yesterday. So the cause and effect is mass, and that's it. There is no other
No.
explanation required.
No, that's not true. Mass does not cause pressure. It's only when forces are applied that mass start to cause pressure. We can demonstrate this by putting a scale between you and your seat in a car and then accelerating. And if you're standing still, that scale is not gonna prove any pressure or barely any just from sitting backwards. If you're gonna accelerate, suddenly the pressure in the scale is gonna go up and there's gonna be apparent weight.
That's just an added variable.
But that's an effect.
Well, no.
Because when the coconut falls and it creates an indentation in the sand, that's as far as it goes. But if you go over and step on it and it goes farther down, that's exactly what you're talking about with a car accelerating and the scale. You're adding a force that's yours. But when
We were talking about a stationary setting, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
talking about an indent from the momentum of a coconut falling, because if it is still movement, then at first the impact there will be greater force until
Right,
it is
well, that wasn't
slowed
what I
down and
asked.
found a new equilibrium, and then there will still be weight.
Right. That's not what I asked. So the coconut's on the ground. Yeah? Yeah? Right. So the coconut's on the ground. Does this force suddenly stop existing?
And I do not claim a force.
Right, but
I
you're
only
saying there's an
claim weight.
effect, right? And I'm trying to establish.
Weight.
I'm trying to
I
establish.
Weight I can prove. Okay,
I
but you
continually
can't
hear
prove a
doublespeak.
force.
Wait,
so
weight is
don't
weight's
put the word force in my mouth. Don't
Weight's a
trick me.
concept, though. So
No, weight is a scale. You can do it. You can test it. You can call it whatever you want. Weight is a fact. It's there.
it's still a concept, though, isn't it?
It's a
Measurable.
proven concept.
It's measurable.
Excuse me, who was talking to you?
I was correcting you, Nathan.
Right, it's a concept.
Yeah, everything
Measurable.
is a concept.
Sorry, why are you saying
Everything is a
measurable
concept,
continually?
but
This isn't
this
your
one is
conversation,
proven.
Rumpus.
Weight
You weren't
is
part of this
proven.
conversation. So, we've got the
Weight-
coconut on the ground, Darwin, and I want to know what effect you're observing.
Weight.
Right, so wait. That's at the end of that statement.
Yeah, but that weight is not always constant. If you change, it's only in a stationary fashion. That is what the baseline definition for weight is. It is something is not moving anymore. Then what level of pressure will it exert? That is weight.
Right.
Well,
So,
what,
that's the
what
end
do you
of...
mean that weight is not constant?
Right, that's what I was going to ask.
Because I explained.
Well, isn't that thing
Weight- no.
gonna weigh the same thing all the time?
The
No,
weight is
look, mass is constant. Weight is not.
it is on the Earth. At the surface of the Earth, it's constant.
How we can observe this?
I told you, if you go in a rocket, standing still on the ground
Hold on,
before launch,
we're not
you're
in
gonna
any
stand on the
rockets.
scale,
We're not
then
in
the
any
weight will say
rockets.
the normal
Hold on,
stationary
you're
weight.
moving reference frames around, Darwin. We've just got a
But
simple
that doesn't
coconut.
matter.
Yeah,
No.
because
Oh,
I'm.
so since when?
Yeah, I'm talking
Oh,
about a
okay, so
coconut
the-
on the ground, not talking about
And
aeroplanes.
I gave an example. In a
Hold on.
stationary fashion, weight is just normal. You can't just say, "Oh, you're moving around now; it no longer works." No, we're referencing the scale, the pressure.
Right,
in the rocket
That is how
example,
weight is measured.
so there's no
Arwin?
need for gravity if something is at rest.
Don't get gravity in here.
in
Well,
There's no
okay,
mention of
whatever you
gravity.
want to call it. Upward acceleration effect, downward acceleration force, gravity. I couldn't care less what you call it. This external, magical, non-visible force, right? That is not needed if you've just got a coconut on the ground. It's just got a weight, and that's the end of it, correct?
No.
what is the rocket example, Arwin, again?
It's
Rocket
just like the
example
car.
is how weight, which is basically mass when force is applied to it, exerting pressure. That is how you measure weight.
Isn't that what we call inertia?
I don't know.
Inertia
As
is
far as I
the
know, weight is just weight, which is expressed
Well, yeah,
as
but
mass with pressure, with force being applied to it. That
Yeah,
is the
well-
formula. That is how it seems to work. That is how it always works. That
there
is
is a
how it was
formula for
designed.
weight, and it's called mass times little g. That gives you weight.
So what? We've already established from your hypothesis yesterday, Rumpus, that this formula isn't required. In your little scientific that you claim to be scientific experiment, you said if mass, then changing the phenomena of a number on a man-made scale. So mass was your independent variable.
Correct. And there are two other independent.
Right, so mass is all we have, not this extra formula that you're now inserting. Yeah? No, Rumpus. Mass. Just mass. Independent variable of mass. That's what caused your phenomena of the change in your scale. Now, let's not insert any little formulas that you're going to add to that assert there is second force called gravity.
There are two other independent variables, Nation, with which are being held constant.
Sorry, what does independent mean?
It means you've got one, and you can have multiple.
Right. So there's two other independent
Correct.
variables, is there? Dick brain.
they're
Are you a
control variables,
retard?
actually.
Excuse me. Are you a retard?
No, I'm very clever in
Do
comparison.
you understand what independent means? You've just given me the definition.
Absolutely. It's the
Right,
variable.
so why would we have two other independent? Because they're not independent anymore, are they, Rumpus?
They're called controlled variables. You don't understand.
Oh, so
this. They're controlled variables.
control is not an independent variable.
It's a type of independent variable. It's controlled.
No, an
one
independent
you
variable
choose not to vary.
is an independent variable.
Do you know what a controlled variable
Don't
is?
ask me what a control is. We're talking about independent variables.
But you need to know the other names of the other variables.
Excuse
in the
me,
equation.
we are talking about independent variables, not controls.
We need to understand the others exist in this formula.
Oh, do we now? So we
need.
need to presuppose them, do we?
No, we work them out.
Oh, really? We can work them out mathematically with the formula you're about to presuppose and give us that we must use?
You can work them out by experience. You check
Sorry,
that-
work
you
them
check
out with
various
mathematics or prove them by cause and effect scientific
Okay,
actual
do you like that?
validation. Give me an answer. Are you going to calculate them mathematically or validate what you're about to presuppose scientifically?
When you perform an experiment, you
Not when I perform an experiment. Are you going to scientifically validate your assertion? Yes or no?
when you do an experiment, you need to find out all the independent variables, and there could be.
There aren't independent variables. They are... Oh my god. You have an independent variable. The cause of the effect.
No, there are more than one variable that causes the effect, though. You
Well,
hold.
then it wouldn't be an independent variable, would it? The cause. The singular cause of the effect. For you
There is not a
yesterday...
singular cause,
excuse me.
Nathan.
Excuse me. For you yesterday, that would be mass.
That's the independent variable.
Correct. The independent variable. For you, mass. The cause of the effect.
Understand that there are multiple. For instance, like the pressure on your foot that I might exert will be dependent on my mass, how much I'm jumping up and down, my velocity, my momentum, the mass of the Earth. There are lots of things.
Oh,
that
sorry, you
cause-
just inserted the mass of the Earth there. Well, if there's many multiple independent variables, then you don't have science, Rumpus. You have a cluster screw of lots of other independent variables according to you. So it's not scientifically valid, my friend. You need to isolate the cause of
Exactly.
the effect.
Well done. Nate, exactly. You isolate a variable of many that you've got affecting the situation.
Yeah.
So
No, you have a prediction based on a single independent variable in your hypothesis, and your hypothesis validates that cause or invalidates that cause. If you invalidate it, you can move on to another independent variable. Why don't you understand science, Rumpus? I'm going to ask you now. Why would it be that you would assert here that you have multiple independent variables? Is it because... Shut up! I'm asking you a question. Shut up. Is it because you don't understand... Shut up! If you talk again, you're ejected. One more chance. Yeah, you've done it again. Right, goodbye. You can't be tolerated.
You're frightened of me. I know you're
Goodbye.
frightened of me, Nathan.
Rumpus doesn't understand science. Rumpus has asserted that you can have multiple independent variables, and he is wrong. I'm going to assert now that Rumpus is retarded. He is literally stupid because he has asserted that you have multiple variables. Now you do not. You have an isolated independent variable and you have a hypothesis which establishes in your prediction if that is or is not the cause. If it is not, and the hypothesis is invalidated, then you can try and isolate a separate independent variable to move forward with further experimentation. You don't have multiple variables in your experiment. Rumpus is an idiot. He clearly does not understand science and is quite prepared to come and humiliate himself in front of me, a complete layman. But he doesn't understand science if he's going to assert that you have multiple independent variables. You don't. You isolate the cause of the effect. And when he did it yesterday with his complete buffoonery, asserting that a phenomena is a scale, complete idiot, again, misunderstanding the difference between what an observed phenomena is and what an observed phenomena is absolutely not when we talk about the natural world. So again, Rumpus is basically demonstrating his complete and total stupidity here, and he's been doing it for weeks. I'm sick of him coming in and constantly talking so that he can get away with asserting nonsense. And his nonsense today is easy for anybody to verify. You don't have multiple independent variables. He's a buffoon. He's an idiot.
Oh, really? Well, he usually is, but in this case, I beg to differ. Because are you saying that anything can only have one cause? Is that what you're declaring?
Yeah, you're establishing the cause of the effect.
Oh, really? So there's no like possibilities of multiple types of forces, like
if you
that
can't
could have
isolate
the
an
same
independent
effect. Is that
variable,
what you're
you
saying?
don't have a cause of an effect. You have multiple factors.
Right. Yeah. And well, what he was saying is, yeah, you can basically negate the other, keep them constant, and then use one variable to see, hey, does it work? Does it coincide? Does
Oh,
the
really,
formula...
Owen? So he can assume that we've got a gravitational force then and just say it's there. He can just presuppose it and then carry on with his pseudoscience, right? Just
I'm gonna
presuppose
leave
there's
if you
another
don't let
force.
me finish, okay?
Well, no, that's what you've said. He can just say it's a constant. He can just presuppose it and insert it and call it science. Just make the question and say we've got this other force that's at play. No, Arwin, afraid not. Yeah, if he's going to presuppose that that's there, he first needs to validate that it is actually there. And he would do that if he was using science by isolating independent variables. That's what science is. Establishing a cause of an effect.
I think Arwin is wrong.
Who's
Hey,
this?
Jose.
Hey, how you doing? It's me.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I've thought through this whole issue of gravity and it being a variable is it doesn't have to exist, because it's completely irrelevant because we have the same effect. We observe the same thing, and then the baller simply brings in gravity as a variable, but you don't need it because you can't manipulate it, you can't test it, you can't do anything to it. It's the same thing with scale. It has to be inserted, but it doesn't need to be inserted because you have the same observation, you have the same effect, So we have a world that is demonstrably flat, observably flat, and yet in reality, according to the heliocentrists, it's curved and spinning. So we cannot determine with our own senses the reality that with which we are presented. We cannot determine it. It has to be inserted. Which means it's irrelevant, because ultimately we have the same observations. When I look out, I see it demonstrably flat. When I stand still, I observe that I am not in motion.
Did Arwen leave?
Well,
Yeah, he rage quit.
He rage quit at the point where I defended the fact that you can't just presuppose this extra force, call it a constant, and then say you're doing science. He didn't like that.
Because
the only
basically,
reason why you need this force is, wasn't it because we're supposed to live in a ball so that people doesn't fall away from the ground? That's the only reason why we needed that force, right? But in a plain ground, I don't think we need any force. It's just mass and density. That's the way I see it. Probably I'm wrong, but there's no evidence otherwise.
right, but that's the question that ballers continually give me
Hey,
when I have
Anthony.
this discussion. They will say, well, what's keeping us to what's connecting us to the ground? If we're not spinning, so that's the exact issue.
Well, first for that they will need to prove that we will fly away without any force, and since there's no such thing, there's no way. Like, you
Right.
know what I'm saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't need a force. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that was my reason of questioning with Arlo was I understand that he says that he can't prove that the force is there. So to me, it's like, all right. So then, why do we have to talk about anything after that? Why do we have to assert there's a force that we can't prove, but we know it's there? I mean, obviously, there's probably all types of crazy forces going around all over the place all the time anyway. No, but we don't know that, right? So I don't know. I don't. And then to change it from downward acceleration, which we see things going down, right? And then to change that to upward effect is, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but it's like, I don't know. I was kind of confused by that. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
we know there's a lot of
I'm
Who's
sorry.
got the car
like,
alarm? Hello, mute your mics.
I know we have different forces. Like, somebody yesterday say something about magnetism, and he was saying like, where's the proof? We cannot see it or anything, but we know we can manipulate that force, like even in quantum theory and quantum physics.
Yeah,
we
but hang on,
can, like,
hang on. That's not even the point with magnetism. With magnetism, you've got a
oh,
magnet to show the force.
yeah, but he was saying like, since you cannot see that force, then he was trying to say that is the same thing on things falling down to the ground, because you cannot see the force on the magnets, and you cannot see the force on things going down. Is he was trying to say that that's the same thing, but it's not the same thing at all.
Ballers claim that gravity is the weakest of the forces, right? The claimed forces. So whatever strength that gravity has, where do you draw the line between the object falling because of its density compared to the gravity that's
Did they
affecting
call it
it?
a
Is it like
fictitious force?
is it like 95% density, 5% gravity? Is it 99 and 1%? Is it 50-50? How do you distinguish the density over the gravity to show that the gravity exists? And by their definition, if you go with, well, we can't even go with Newtonian, but that's the one that they all lean to because it's the most logical and practical. Technically, it's supposed to be the bending of space-time. I mean, I don't know how you're going to demonstrate the bending of space-time, but even if you were to persuade each other or persuade people that you could do it with like Newtonian principles, by the definition, you would need to bring Jupiter over from where Jupiter is and gradually move it towards the Earth and move it away from the Earth and watch the gravitational pull vary, and that would be the way to prove it, and it's the only way to prove it.
I mean, I agree with you.
Assuming of course gravity is the Newton. Assuming of course that Newtonian gravity principles are the current science, which of course we know that they're not.
Okay,
I just
hold
feel
on, really quick. If P, if gravity, then Q, I stay on the ground and I don't fly away. Q, I don't fly away, I stay on the ground. Therefore, P, gravity, no, I don't fly away because I don't have wings and I'm not lighter than the air. It's not because of gravity. I don't have to make it just some story. I'm just stuck in the ground. That's it, period. I don't fly away because I don't got wings. I'm not lighter than the air, period. That's it.
Well, that was my attempt with the coconut demonstration. That is that I'm watching it. We pick it up. We feel the weight of the coconut. That's the explanation. For someone sitting next to me to say, well, I think that there's actually a force. Well, now we've got a second variable that I didn't observe. What was your observation?
I agree. Past the weight of the coconut on the ground, is there a force other than that acting on it? I don't think that there is. I mean, it's my opinion. I don't think there is.
The biggest problem with Darwin's position is claiming that it's an effect, right? But completely thinking it's acceptable to say that, well, there is no cause or we're not moving. Well, you have to identify what the cause of the effect is to be able to claim that there's an effect. Otherwise, there's no effect. It's just a perception that you think's there, but we have no evidence to prove. But psychologically speaking, it's interesting because Darwin was basically arguing their position. But none of the ballers, apart from patting him on the back to encourage him, none of them came on to support him other than Rumpus. And Rumpus can't last more than 5 minutes without getting kicked for being unfriendly, rude, regardless of the merit of his claim. He just can't help himself. But where's all the ballers jumping to his defense and claiming how they can prove gravity? And the problem is, of course, well, how are you going to prove the bending in space-time? And obviously, it makes it unobtainable. You can't prove whatever the bending of space-time actually is, and you're not going to be able to manipulate it to be able to prove causation. So claiming that there's an effect, but without any evidence of a cause, is fallacious. It's not even a logical fallacy, it's just wrong.
If anything has to be demonstrated or proven, it's going to be we living in a pressurized system because living on an air a pressurized system, actually, we just fall down because of the air that surrounds us. So if anything, they don't have to prove a bending of space-time or masses attracting masses. It's the matter of a pressurized system next to a non-pressurized system if they believe in space, you know.
Nathan, is it a Newtonian telescope you've got?
What do you mean Newtonian?
The design of it.
Just a telescope. I'm no telescope expert. Explain what you mean.
Well, it's, a Newtonian one uses a mirror rather than just lenses.
Right. Yes, it's got a mirror.
So it's a Newtonian telescope. It was actually invented by Newton.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, and you see, why I said that is that I think that Riley is dismissing everything Newtonian because he's confused. He's looking at the theory of gravity through Newton, Einstein, and Cavendish. But there are some things that Newton did that were actually true and accurate and still used today.
Well, why do you think that I'm dismissing everything Newtonian when I've already accepted that and stated publicly that there are parts of Einstein's theory that is correct? Parts of his relativity theory is correct, and I accept that. Not all of it. The stuff to do with the space planets and all that, that's a bit crazy. But
Okay,
general relativity is, some of it is correct.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean by virtue that all of Isaac Newton's works rejected or indeed endorsed. I accept the stuff that's got evidence to support it, regardless of its content. That's why I don't necessarily rule out people that join the ball side after being on the flat earth side, because I ultimately realize that there's evidence that goes both ways and everyone's entitled to an opinion, but it doesn't mean it's true one way or the other.
Can I make a reply to the your presentation of yesterday?
With which point?
Well, you made a presentation. Can I make a reply to it?
Oh yeah, sure. With the liquid mercury and the anvil.
Well, you said that you were going to jump down my throat every time I use the word force or downward force. Well, I'm going to present my conclusions, and if ever you do jump down my throat, I'm going to put you in the box.
Great.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Pressure's
Great. Well,
on.
show us the force.
Right, you're presenting, Mark.
Jolly good. let's just have a look. Hopefully, no, that's one of the. We go. Now I'm going to talk to. Can it? Oh, come on, Leo. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, you're all good, Mark. You're all good.
I'm going to ask everybody on the panel whether they agree with Newton's first law of inertia.
You read it because I can't. Is it number 1 in the box?
Yeah, not number 1. Yeah, we're not going to go to 2 or 3, but this was Newton's. He said that an item or a body would remain stationary unless acted on by an outside force.
Yes, I agree with that.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, does everybody else agree with that? Yeah.
Aye.
Yes. Okay. So the football there, the picture of a little football there, it'll stay there forever. It's common sense unless it's acted upon by an outside force. And the outside force is somebody kicking it. Would we agree on that? Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Hold on. So you've got a principle that the heliocentrists would say that is already acting on it.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the law of inertia, that something will remain stationary unless acted upon by an outside force, whether it's the kick of a football player or the wind or somebody hitting it with a sledgehammer. It'll stay there until it's acted upon by another force.
Right, but what I'm trying to get across is that you're saying, by your phraseology, you're saying there's no force acting on it, and it's going to stay where it is because there's no force acting on it. But in their bullshit world, it's not just a stationary object at equilibrium, it's also got something holding it so it doesn't, just float away or sideways or whatever they want to bullshit about, what it should be doing because of the force of gravity holding it in place. Right?
No, don't ask me right. Just tell me what you say, what you observe.
Well, I observe exactly what you state. I'm not disagreeing with you, but at this stage, apparently, we're told there's a presupposition that there's another force at play, and it's a Newtonian force.
No,
I don't think that Mark. I'd like to defend Mark on this point. I'm taking Mark's presentation right now at its base presentation.
Just take it at
face. Just take it at face value.
I'll step off.
No, I appreciate your input, and if I'm making a mistake.
No, go on. Carry on. Let's just hear what you've got to say.
Okay, now how do I get them?
So read back the words. An object at rest will
stay at rest unless it's acted upon by an outside force.
Great.
Yep.
We all agree. We all agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Great. Brilliant. Excellent. Now then, let's see what I can. I'm using Windows again. I hate using Windows. My next picture there is the direction of the force. All right. There's a snooker cue there. Somebody's going to hit the ball. That ball is stationary until acted upon by an outside force. And once the outside force hits it, it'll move in the same direction that the force came from. Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. it'll move commensurate with the direction of the force.
Yeah, technically, there are other things that can influence the direction of travel. Go ahead. You can kick a football with spin on it, and that'll create an effect, won't it? Called the
but that's still a part. That's still a part. You're saying that the shooter could hit the cue ball with English and it's going to spin, but that's still commensurate with the issue. It's going to move in proportion with the direction and the angle and the force.
All controls being equal, I would agree. But the Magnus effect is proof that that's not strictly speaking true.
Well, listen, if it had two forces going against this white ball, it was called a vector, where there's two different directions, and it's all interpreted into the one body, and it will go in a particular direction. Mathematically, I shouldn't have said that. It will go in a direction always if the force.
Okay, but do you agree that the Magnus effect is not what you're describing there?
No, I'm just.
It's not. Hold on. Just before we go off on this tangent, I'm happy to concede that we've got a single force in a single direction, just for the sake of simplicity. If Anthony's happy,
okay. Okay, I'll agree, but on the basis that it is a little bit simplified, there are other things that do affect it. But simply speaking, yes.
It would be a stupid game if you played snooker. Whenever you hit the white ball, it just goes any way it wants. It has to.
No, but you can make that white ball go in a different trajectory other than dead straight and the angle that you point the cue at.
If you need it to do that, then you can put a spin on it. And if you knew all the parameters,
correct,
and you were an excellent pool player, you can put that force on it. because you wanted to go in a particular direction. What I'm saying to you that so
Correct.
something remains at rest until it's hit by something else, and it'll go in that direction. So yesterday you were talking to me, and maybe I misunderstood you, but you were saying that if you can't present the evidence of the force, then there isn't the force.
Correct.
Okay. Will you write that down so you can't go back on that?
No, you can quote me verbatim, and I'll agree. You have to
I
show
heard
evidence
him.
of force. Yeah, that is my position. You've got to show evidence of the force.
Okay. Now let's say this pool table had a curtain over one side, and all you could see would be the white ball coming into your side. You didn't actually see the cue hit the ball, but it's going in a particular direction. You know which way or how the cue ball was hit initially, even though you didn't see the initial.
No, that's not true, because otherwise goalkeepers would save all shots from football. Magnus effect.
Look at the cue ball. Look at the picture they've got up.
Yeah, but it's an oversimplified, non-realistic example.
If you see
Yeah.
something moving in a particular direction, and you knew all the parameters, you would know where the force initially came from.
No, I don't agree.
Well,
Agree with-
okay. You don't
Because
agree
of the
with
Magnus effect.
Mark, I think I understand what you're trying to do. Are you trying to say that if I can't see the shooter, therefore there's no origin of the force,
No.
but then I see the
No, what I'm saying is that Riley said yesterday, if you can't see the force, then there's no evidence of the force.
Yeah. So
that's what I was trying to say. What you've removed the shooter from my periphery. I cannot see him. So
Yes,
when I see the cue ball come in and hit the billiards, when I see the cue ball come in, since I didn't see it originate, there's still a force acting on it. So you're saying there's a force.
Yes, because according to Newton's first law, everything's stationary until acted upon by an outside force. So if you see the billiard ball move or the white ball move, you know that force has been exerted into it.
Yeah, I don't think Anthony or I would.
Okay, and
talk.
if the cue ball is going in a particular direction, and you knew all the parameters. With football, there's a game of minds as well. Try and make the goalkeeper go the wrong way while you shoot the other way. So forget about that. Just stick to the simplicity of this particular game. If you see the white ball going in a direction, you know that it was sent in that direction. Otherwise, the game doesn't make any sense.
Okay, sure.
Right, now I want to talk about invisible forces that we don't...
Hang on. Would you agree that the force that you're demonstrating without the pool or the cue player is lateral? Right?
Listen, don't take me to one side and start arguing about something else. Just stay with me here.
No, but you're illustrating a lateral force.
You're trying
I want you to show.
Hold on, I want
down
Mark to be able to get to the end of his point because I'm keeping it open at the moment. I want to take a quick break, so that's going to happen as soon as Mark gets to the conclusion of his point.
This is the answer to the question when people say, "Why doesn't it move up or left or right when it moves down?"
You jump in the gun there, Sunbeam. Jump in the gun. You said to me that if there's no evidence of the force, then there can't be force.
Yeah, you have to show the force.
You've got to show the force. Can you think of anything that gives force to a stationary object that you cannot actually tangibly see?
No, I asked that yesterday and nobody. I didn't see any answer.
What about wind? I don't see wind.
Is wind a force or is it movement of air?
It's the force. If that was a ping pong ball and it suddenly starts to move,
You can feel it though.
it moves because the
Yeah,
wind.
you can evidence wind by putting your washing online, and you can see that. Well, you can't see wind because it's colourless. But let me have a think about that. That's a fair point. Let me think. Well, hang on. Love is a force, is it? So
we can go into emotion, but that would be more of a sort of Arwen's way of doing things.
All right. So let me think of wind. Right. So wind makes things move, and we can't see its origin. We don't know where it comes from. So is it a force? Well, no, because it lacks physicality, doesn't it? It would have to satisfy the definition of a force.
The cue is it lacks physicality, but there's somebody behind it pushing that, giving it energy.
Right. So if you remove the player and you remove the cue, how's the ball ever going to move?
It will never move.
Correct.
It will absolutely never move. If it was a ping pong ball and it suddenly started to move.
Right. So what Arwen's claiming, what Arwin's claiming is that there's an upwards acceleration force, which is effectively the coup player.
That's not my argument. You're gonna jump down my throat every time I use the word downward force, and I'm just making it clear as to why I believe that. And I also
Okay, so go on then.
If that was a ping pong ball and there's no cue or player, and it started to move in a direction, you would say, or you could rightly conclude, there's a draft coming into the room and it's moved the ping pong ball.
Okay.
You can't see the draft, but you see evidence of the draft.
G'day.
You
Right,
would
now,
be able to,
can I
you would
give
be
you
able
another?
to feel it, wouldn't you?
I'm gonna. Sorry, say it again.
You would be able to feel a draft, though, wouldn't you?
Oh
Right,
yes, you can feel the force.
Sorry, guys,
but you
I
might
am
not be
going to
able
close
see
out the
it.
show. I wouldn't normally announce this, but if you want 30 seconds, Mark, just to make your point, please don't anybody interrupt him. Mark will get the last word. So, Mark, if you can just give us 30 seconds, we can.
I'm going to give you two more examples of an invisible force that's evidential, but you can't see it. And one is electricity moving through a copper wire. You don't see it, but you see the effects of it. Another one would be a megaphone, where you can direct the energy or the power coming from the megaphone to a particular place so that Jack on the other side of the building site can actually hear you, and he knows the direction that it came from. So what I'm saying to you is that there are invisible forces that create a direction, something that was stationary, and then it starts to move in that direction that the force sent it into.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, you know precisely what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!